Living the Dash. 2 women, 1 plane, 8 days. Around the world with CarolAnn Garratt and Carol Foy as they set a new world record.
What a wonderful world we live in, where we have the freedom to fly around the whole Earth in a small single-engine plane.
In December 2008, 2 women flew around this planet of ours in 8.5 days, setting a new world record.
Come, live this flight with us.
The intrepid pilots are CarolAnn Garratt from Florida and Carol Foy from Texas. Each has over 3,000 hours of flight time and her own Mooney single-engine plane. This flight was done in CarolAnn's Mooney, a J model with a 200-horsepower Lycoming engine sipping less than 8 gallons per hour of fuel. That's over 20 miles per gallon.
We only can take off day VFR, so we'll actually be leaving Orlando at night at Gross, and then every other takeoff after that will be over Gross during the day. And we'll have a lot of midnight landings. So our time frame changed a little bit, so it's just over 7 days.
Gross being the maximum weight that the plane can take?
Yes, gross weight.
Okay.
But we have a legal sign-off from the FAA to fly over Gross because of the ferry tanks. So they've inspected it, they've checked the fuel system, they've checked the weight and balance, and they've approved special airworthiness certificate for flying over Gross.
So you have to go through a lot of regulations and everything to
You have to go through a lot of regulations to do this, yes.
Correct. We only have 3 weeks to go for this flight. However, it's been planned for the last 1.5 years with very intense sign-offs and regulations and talking to people around the world and coordination and just basically getting everything lined up, probably very intensely the last 6 to 9 months.
The reason for doing the flight is to raise $1 million for ALS. ALS is Lou Gehrigs Disease. And all the money, all the sponsors, anybody that donates to become affiliated with the flight, donates to ALS Therapy Development Institute, which is in Boston, and it's a not-for-profit organization doing research to find a cure for ALS. ALS is a horrible disease. My mother died from it. Carol has a cousin with it right now. I know many people with it, and once you're diagnosed with it, it's terminal. You are going to die within 3 to 5 years. So we're out to get money raised to find a cure. Before departing the evening of December 2nd, 2008 from Orlando International Airport, we were interviewed by various TV stations and newspapers. As you just heard, this flight had a significant cause: to benefit ALS research, to find a cure for this devastating neurological disease, which is terminal.
2220 Foxtrot Charlie, Orlando Tower. Good evening, ma'am. I want to verify your clearance. I said you're going to San Diego at 4,000 feet, is that correct? Alright. 2220 Foxtrot Charlie, the wind is 3506, turn left heading 270. Runway 36 left, clear for takeoff.
This first leg from Orlando to San Diego is the most northerly point in latitude for the trip. The closer to the equator we fly, the better the easterly tailwinds for each leg. We fly through the night over the southern states and Texas and see the barren plains and mountains of New Mexico and Arizona in the morning. The winds are stronger than forecast, and although we departed 30 minutes ahead of our original plan, we arrive in San Diego 45 minutes late. There is a low overcast and fog on the coast. At the end of 16 hours and 30 minutes of flying, we come in on the GPS 8 left approach to San Diego Brownfield, land, and taxi to the waiting crowd.
Our pilots take this opportunity to get their message across about Lou Gehrigs Disease and the cause of this flight. And CarolAnn gets a few moments and laughs with her brother Richard.
We then brief with fellow Earthrounder Jay Shower. has weather charts and has received approval for us to transit the military airspace to the west. Most aircraft have to fly around this airspace, so this is a real benefit. We have loaded up to 13% over gross weight. Our FAA limit is 15%, and we really don't need the fuel for this leg to Hawaii, but it's our final test before the 3,200 nautical mile leg to Guam. With this fuel load, we will be measuring our airspeed and fuel consumption to confirm our endurance for the longer legs.
This is the first of 5 long overwater legs. As we learned in elementary school, the Earth is covered 70% by water, with the Pacific Ocean being the largest single body of water. Their next 3 legs take them across the vast Pacific Ocean. Obviously, CarolAnn and Carol have unwavering faith in their engine, equipment, and maintenance. Their minds are on the job, and they are set for this adventure.
Across the oceans, we'll be using HF, or high-frequency radio, to communicate with air traffic control. We have to make position reports every hour. The HF radio is on the instrument panel, and we have a trailing antenna protruding from the belly of the plane. At cruise altitude, the antenna is released so that 80 feet of wire is trailing behind the plane. We will also use the HF radio for email with our ground crew and to update the website for family, friends, and pilots who are following along, almost real time.
Their other communication equipment includes an Iridium satellite phone and a small laptop that communicates through HF radio. With these devices, they have multiple options for reaching their ground crews.
After 16 more hours of flying, we are in VHF communication with air traffic control in Hawaii. We listen to the weather and set up the equipment for an instrument approach into Lihue. We are warmly welcomed by George Crabb, the airport manager, and Roger Cable, the airport representative for AOPA, who was our contact for this stop. After presenting a Hawaiian lei to each of us, Roger whisked us off to the hotel for some solid rest.
The next morning, there's not much time for pictures and interviews, but CarolAnn and Carol are presented with donations to ALS research. Time is urgent. They quickly refuel and taxi out. Less than 2 hours after leaving the hotel, they're on their way again.
This runway is only 6,000 feet long, and we are at our maximum allowed over gross weight, with enough fuel to make the 3,200 nautical mile leg to Guam. There is a good 12-knot wind down the runway, and the runway slopes down towards the ocean. The liftoff is smooth, and we have a beautiful view of the shore and landscape as we gently turn southwest and climb to 4,000 feet. I called Universal Weather this morning to get the winds between Hawaii and Guam. Not good news. There is a low-pressure system slightly to the north, and the planned route, Airway A450, would have headwinds for the first third or 1,000 miles of the leg. That won't work. Further south, there would be tailwinds, so I revised the route to head southwest, then west to have tailwinds for the whole leg. We continued our 2-hour shifts of rest and pilot in command duties. We also had to make position reports every hour with air traffic control, and we had satellite and email messages to send.
On her kneeboard, CarolAnn wrote,
"We have beautiful sunsets over the ocean. What's tough is watching the sun go down after almost 9 hours of flying, feeling slightly tired and knowing that we still have 14 hours to go to Guam. That's mentally and physically very difficult.
There was a small rain shower as they arrived, and the winds were pretty gusty. But neither of those factors were going to stop these two pilots from landing after this 23-hour leg. Our pilots slept for 4 hours, had a light lunch, and returned to the airport for TV interviews.
There is no known cause, no cure, and not enough people working on it. My mother died from it, Carol has a cousin with it, and we're making an event so that people pay attention to us so that we can spread the word about ALS.
We were in for a surprise when we arrived at the refueling station. There were 4 drums sitting on a pallet. Mel, our refueler, explained that the normal delivery hadn't been received for 3 weeks and their gas truck was empty.
In less than an hour, the refueling was done and they were taxiing off again. With a short wait for arrivals, our duo departed. This 2,880 nautical mile, 20-hour leg would take them across Manila in the Philippines, across the South China Sea to Vietnam, then across Cambodia and northwest into Thailand.
Now our HF position reports were to foreign countries, and we were headed to our first international destination. Sometimes we had to relay our position reports through airliners flying above us. It was nighttime across the Philippines. We had passed through some rain to the east, but it was clear and calm as we continued west.
Talking with Bangkok Control, night turned into day and the sun rose behind them. Air traffic control communication was sometimes difficult.
There was a morning haze for our arrival, and visibility was 3,000 meters, or just less than 2 miles. Air traffic control gave us an ILS runway 36 approach, which was almost straight in on our northerly course. After landing, we taxied to our assigned parking, Station 14. You see Bo in his pink shirt pass in front of the plane just before we shut down. He took care of everything for us in Chiang Mai. With Bo and his assistants guiding us, we passed through customs and immigration very quickly and were driven to the hotel within 30 minutes. After 2 hours of sleep and a shower, we were back on our way to the airport. Bo took us to the flight planning office, where we were able to speak with the man in charge. We asked him about our idea to depart VFR, climb over the mountains to the west, then pick up our IFR flight plan. He pointed out several waypoints on the chart and approved our flight plan. We had scheduled a maintenance stop in Chiang Mai, and our ground crew, Norm, coordinated the help of mechanics from Siam General Aviation. They were eager to help and started removing the cowling as soon as we returned to the plane at 1 p.m. We changed the oil and oil filter, cleaned the air filter, cleaned and rotated the spark plugs, checked the magneto timing, then I test ran the engine. Everything was perfect. Time to recowl, fuel up, and continue on our adventure. Many thanks to SGA and to Bo and his assistants who helped us through this maintenance and rest stop in less than 8 hours. This is our last ground support team. We are on our own for the next 4 stops, 1 in the Middle East and 3 in Africa. We've had terrific support and quick turnarounds to this point. We are now halfway around the world. The difficult countries lie ahead of us.